Okay, today we are doing a introduction to Premiere. My name is Melissa Grimes. I am a media specialist in the Mac South Digital Media Center. So when you open up Premiere, this is the screen you should see initially. So we're going to start from the very beginning. We're going to go to New Project. And here we're going to name our project. I'm going to name this one Workshops. Under Location, you want to choose the folder where you want this saved to. Now, I suggest making a new folder for each video. The reason for this is that Premiere actually creates its own file structure, and it can get pretty messy if you don't just create a new folder for every video. So I've already got one called Workshop Files, so I'm just going to choose that folder. And I'm going to, under my scratch disk, these should all be set as same as project. That will save all those files there. And I'm just going to hit OK. So I have a new project opened up. First off, we're going to talk about some of the different parts of Premiere. Up here at the very top, you will see these words: learning, assembly, editing, color effects, and so on. These are different workspaces. A workspace is basically the way that the different windows are arranged. And so each one of these kind of arranges it a little different. I am in the editing one, and I stay in the editing one the majority of the time. So that's where we're going to be working from today. In the upper left-hand corner, this box here is going to be your preview window. Upper right-hand corner is your program window. Now, preview and program, a lot of people get these confused. So in preview, you're just viewing the clips before you add them to your timeline. You can look through and cut them and things like that. Program is what your video is actually looking like at that moment. Down in the bottom left, you have your project panel. This is where you're going to import all your media, your video, your music, anything like that that you're working with. You have your timeline here to your right. This is where you are actually going to build your video. And then here in the center, between your timeline and your project panel, you have a set of tools. So now that we kind of know what all these different windows are, we're going to get started. So down in the lower left-hand corner in my projects panel, I'm going to double-click, and I'm going to import some media. So I'm going to go ahead and import some video files that I have for this workshop set up. You can import multiple files at once, or you can do them one at a time. You can even import an entire folder. So once I'm ready, I hit open, and it will import those. So here are my files that I imported. So I can double click on any one of these files, and I can see it in my preview window, and I can play it. Now, if that's the file I want, all I have to do is click on it and drag it down here to my timeline. Now, as you see, that then put that video clip on my timeline. So, if I were to play it, you see it playing in my program monitor. So now, if I wanted to edit this video, there's a couple ways I can do that. So let's say that I didn't want the beginning part here. I wanted to go to where it's kind of starts the pan, which is right there. The easy way to cut out something from the beginning is if I hover, you kind of see this little red arrow, and all I have to do is click and drag, and I can drag it to wherever I want, and that will edit it to that spot. So that's our first way to edit. Our second way, which is good for if you're wanting to cut something out in the middle of the clip, is let's say I wanted to start a cut right here. I can come over here to my tools panel, and if I grab this one that looks like a razor blade, it's called your razor tool, you'll see it gives me a little blade, and I can hover anywhere over this video and make cuts. Now, in order to do anything with those pieces of video that I've cut, I now have to go back over here to my tools panel, click my selection tool. That's the tool that looks like the pointer arrow. I can then click any of these clips, and I can hit backspace to delete. If I've got a blank spot in here, I can highlight that and hit backspace to delete. And you'll see that these two clips now will be cut together, so there'll be a jump. So right there is my jump where I cut it. Now, often, you may want to separate your audio from your video. So, to do that's pretty simple. Let's say I don't want this static noise that's in the background. All I have to do is click on my clip, right click on it, and if I hit unlink. Now what this is going to do is this is going to separate your audio and your video. So all these others, if I move it, my audio and video moves together, but this one, it moves independently. So I've separated these, and all I have to do is click on the audio to highlight, hit backspace, and it's going to remove that audio. The next thing you may want to do is you may want to bring in some additional audio. You may want to do a voiceover. You may want to add some music, something of that nature. So again, down here in our project panel, I'm going to double click. And I have a song right here that I'm going to bring into the project. Excuse me. And I'm just going to click and drag that down here on one of the audio tracks. So now if I play this, now that music is really loud, a lot louder than I want it to be. So there are ways that we can adjust the volume of that music. If you double click on this audio, it'll pop up here in your preview window. If you go under Effect Controls, there are two volume options. There's volume and channel volume. Now you want to stay away from channel volume. If you mess with channel volume, that is going to adjust anything you put on this one audio channel. So I just want to change the volume of the clip. So I'm just going to use volume. And on level, I can either click and drag left and right on this. I can double click and type in a number and hit enter. Or I can also pull down this drop down and have a little bar that I can sit there and pull the dot on. So now this should be a lot quieter if I go back and play it. So now that I've got a couple clips, if I wanted to add another clip, let's say I wanted to add one of the fountain here on campus. So this is my clip that I'm going to add. All I have to do is click and drag, and I can pull it to the end of whatever video clip was last, or I can pull it in the center if I want to move some clips around. And now that will just go into a straight cut. Now let's say that I wanted that fountain video, but I didn't want the audio. Up here in my preview panel, I have two little icons down here. I've got one that looks like a film strip and one that looks like an audio bar. This is going to drag either only the video or only the audio. So if I grab just the film strip and drag, that gives me just the audio. Sorry, just the video. Next, you may want to learn how to insert photos. And so let's learn how to insert a photo. I'm going to come back down here into my project panel, and I'm going to pull in a couple of JPEGs. Again, I'm using the same process as before to pull them in. Now I have two JPEGs. One's a vertical and one is a horizontal. We're going to start with the horizontal. So I can click and drag this down, just like I did with my video. But now you see I've got a problem. It's stretched bigger than the screen, and that's not what I want. So if I double click this, I can go up into Effect Controls, and I can use this option that says Scale. I can either click here at the number, or I can click down for that bar, and I can scale it down so that it all fits into my window like I want it to. So those are just the basics of editing. So now we've got our video, and we need to learn how to export it so you can upload your content. So down here, you will notice I have a yellow bar on top of mine. And I'm going to delete this space at the beginning so I don't have any dead space. But I've got this yellow bar here on top. That means that this isn't rendered. So basically, your computer just can't handle running all of this in real time, and it has to render it first. So to do that, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say Sequence, and I'm going to tell it to render into out. This is going to render everything that's on my timeline. And as you watch, you will see this bar up here starts to turn green. If it's green, that means it's rendered. If it's yellow or red, it needs to be rendered. Now, depending on how good of a computer you have, will depend on how fast this goes and how often you need to render. So now my video is rendered and it's ready to go. So the first thing I need to do is click down here in this box to make sure that I have this box selected. You'll see this blue box around it. And then I'm going to go to File, Export, Media. So there's a couple different formats you can use to do this. My personal preference is this H.264 format, the regular one, not the Blu-ray. So that's my personal preference. It will give you an MP4. You can come down here to Output Name, double click, and you can change this to be whatever you want, and that will be the name of your final video. You always want to make sure these boxes are checked to export video and audio. And there's other things down here that you can mess with. If you leave it just to match source, it will just kind of default and do its own thing. But you can mess with all these different export options. I suggest just leaving those alone. Now down at the very bottom, my screen is a little small, so let me make this smaller. Down here at the very bottom, you have export. So if you hit export, it will take a little bit to export your video. And then once it's done, that video is going to be wherever you saved it. You can then take that video and upload it to Canvas, YouTube, or wherever else that you want to upload your video. So if you have any questions, please contact us at the Digital Media Center. You can contact us at dmc@library.msstate.edu, and we will be happy to help you.